Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachakudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And have a couple of headlines here to go through. We have quite a few today, but I'll try to keep it timely. So starting off here, dealing with what Iran is calling a false event. The double F, right? Double F, you know what that stands for, the false F. So they're calling here this attack, which was on Kuwait's power and desalination facility, which, you know, they thought at least that it was done by Iran, but they have now come out and said that no, this was indeed a double F event done by Israel, okay, to, as the next article I have here goes into, to perpetuate this war. And when you stop looking at this war as something that is, avoidable, or something that these powers, at least on the Western side, Israel, U.S., and so on, are trying to stop, and you stop believing the propaganda they're feeding you, you'll start to see why they would actually do this. And that's why these things would start to make more and more sense, right? That this is they have to keep the fire burning, right? So if the fire starts to go low, they got to throw some more logs in there, right? They got to keep that fire burning, even if it means setting up these events and that's in the title right there. That's the double F right there, to continue to perpetuate this war. So I'll read a little bit of here. It says, Iran alleges series of double F, including on Kuwait water plant, designed to perpetuate war. The Iranian military denied on Monday being behind the recent attack, which hit a desalination plant in Kuwait, labeling the strike an Israeli FF operation aimed at destabilizing and destroying the region. And the reason I'm saying FF is because, you know, at least from past experiences that we've had, there are certain terms that when you say them out with these the YouTube algorithms and their AI agents they've designed to, you know, review all the uploads, all your videos, they'll flag, you know, certain videos like that. So in any case, this is what Iran is saying. Iran is saying, like, these guys are doing this because they're trying to, there's a narrative at hand here, right? And they're furthering that. The brutal aggression by the Zionist regime against the desalination facility in Kuwait, carried out in recent hours under the pretext of accusing the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's interesting, right? Like the verbiage that's used here, it just keeps on bringing to mind, as we've once again over the years we've done many lessons on it and referenced it many times, right? You go and look up the letter of the plan for 3 world wars between Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini, and when you get to the Third World War, you'll see why the main drivers of this war are referred to as the Zionist regime, right, or the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, that's how it was set up and designed to be. It says here in this is a sign, right, of the vileness and depravity of the Zionist occupiers. The Qatam al-Anbiya, central headquarters of the Iranian army, said in a statement, "We declare that U.S. bases, personnel, and their interests in the region, as well as the military, security, and economic infrastructure of the Zionist regime in the occupied Palestinian territories, remain powerful targets for us," it added. Slack here 1 second. Right. It says here, the Iranian military went on to urge countries of West West Asia must remain vigilant against the sedition, where we at? It's like I just lost track of this here. Yes, against the sedition of the U.S. Zionist axis aimed at destabilizing and destroying the region. Okay, so they're basically saying, look, you gotta keep your eyes open, right? Watch the whole entire, watch everything that's transpiring. Don't just sit there and eat up and drink up whatever propaganda it is that they're feeding you. So next we have here, Trump signals response to Haifa refinery, which is in Israel, a refinery in Israel that was hit, strike shortly as, so he signals a response to come shortly in response to Iran striking this refinery here, as White House mulls uranium seizure operation. Besant vows to retake Hormuz over time, which they're saying that right now you have, I think, over 50,000 or so troops over there in the Middle East. So it's not we'll send just 3,000, 5,000. No. And whenever he says we're ahead of schedule, we're doing great with the Iran talks, and the talks are going great. What he's talking about is the ahead of schedule in terms of their plans for that invasion. Okay, when he says things are going great, that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about any actual peace. They don't want peace. So reading the summary here, it says Iran rejects excessive, illogical U.S. demands. So how are the talks going great if they're rejecting this? That's why if you've listened to his verbiage, he throws in there, they need to make a deal quick, because if they don't, then in response they're gonna blow up their whole stuff, right? So they're opening that door to tell you that, hey, in reality, what's going on is there's no deal. But we plan on bombing them. But we want to just throw it out there as like a option on the table, so you're aware that when we do that, it's like, oh, we had to resort to this because the talks didn't work. You want talks, but you're escalating the war front. While Trump mentions progressive, right, with a more reasonable regime, Trump again threatens to destroy Iran energy sites and Karg Island. Hundreds of U.S. Special Forces arrive in region. White House seriously considering ground operation. They're not seriously considering it. They have already considered it. They have already decided on the matter. Okay, this is just public speak or talk for the public. To seize Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, but also wants Tehran to negotiate handing it over willingly. That's like rage bait right there, at least to the Iranians. Besant, U.S. will retake Hormuz Strait over time. So I guess it's no longer a 4 to 6 week thing, right? Bazan oil refinery in Israel's northern city in Haifa is on fire after a second apparent Iranian missile strike of the war. Trump says U.S. response coming shortly. Iran, and so we'll see what that entails, right? What that looks like. Iran accuses Israel of more FFs after Kuwait water desalination plant hit, and we just went through that. Now you would think that, wait a minute, why are you ready to respond shortly if things are going good, if the talks are going good? So next we have here Marco Rubio saying, right, and I'll play the video in a second. But as it says here, we always prefer to settle things, listen to this, through diplomacy. But now, when somebody starts a sentence with, just one going in one direction, and then they add the but, what comes after the but is what they really want to say. Okay? Like, yo, nah, honestly, you're this, you're that. I really think you're this, that, and that. But when they say but, that means whatever they're about to say after that is really what they wanted to say. They just wanted to sort of soften the mood a bit with the first part of what they were saying, what precedes that but. So when he says, but we also have to be prepared for the fact that effort might fail. You don't say that if things are going great. All right. If things are going like superb, like when you wake up and let's say you drive to work, when you wake up and you've been doing this for, let's say, the past 5 years, you don't wake up and start wondering in your head, you know what? I might need a plan B. Today I'm gonna drive to work, but maybe I should have a plan B. Let me check when the trains are running in case my car breaks down. Why don't you do that? You don't do that because you don't expect to need a plan B. It's almost certain in your mind that you're gonna start your car, it's gonna work, and then you're gonna drive to work like you always do. You only have plan B in mind when you anticipate, when you're like, when there are signs that are obvious enough. Yo, it was sounding kind of funny yesterday. I don't know if the tire looking a little down, like you start considering, yo, let me see if I, what time the Ubers, set up, how much is an Uber from here, there. That's when you start to quote unquote have your preparations if efforts fail. So what that's telling you is they're not that we always prefer to settle things through diplomacy, blah, blah, blah. You knew very well there was no way that you were gonna accomplish your so-called goals in Iran through diplomacy. You don't go into another country, a sovereign nation, and tell them, hey, give up whatever defenses you have, give up this, give up, because we feel threatened by you. Okay. We are dealing with a 47-year-old regime that still has a lot of people involved in it who aren't necessarily big fans of diplomacy or peace. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure that's why they were, as we're told, ready to make a deal before they were bombed. That has nothing to do with diplomacy or peace at all, actually. So let's take a listen. I'm going to take this off.
At the end of the day, we have to see if these people end up being the ones in charge, seeing if they're the ones that have the power to deliver. We're going to test it. We are hopeful that that's the case. There are clearly people there talking to us in ways that previous people in charge in Iran have not spoken to us in the past. Some of the things they're willing to do, some of the things they're saying they're willing to do. Obviously, they have to go do it. We're going to test that proposition very...
Now, people, there are people in there that are talking to us that are better than people before. So you don't know who these people are. You don't know what positions they hold. You don't know what influence they have. How do you know if they agree? That means the rest of the entire country and so on is gonna agree. Like, people, huh? Sounds scripted to me.
Strongly, because we always prefer to settle things through negotiation and diplomacy. But we also have to be prepared for the fact that that effort might fail, that we are dealing with a 47-year-old regime that still has a lot of people involved in it who aren't necessarily big fans of diplomacy or peace. At the end of the day, we have...
Yeah, that's just telling you, listen, expect for it to fail. And then we're just putting this here so we can refer back to this in case you have questions and say, well, we did tell you that it's possible it might fail. And we tried, but now we got to go the other route. Next, hundreds of U.S. Special Ops personnel, right? Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marines, and Army paratroopers are now in the Middle East, sources tell CBS. Okay, and like I mentioned before, so as they're getting ready for their ground operation, which that's what they're gonna do, they don't cut spending on other things. They don't go and ask for an increased budget in the billions and send these troops and do all these preparations for fun. They don't do that for fun. Okay, we're in wartime. This is an interesting one as well, right? It says here, Italy's defense minister on the Iran war for Italy, quote unquote, I am forced to know things about what could happen in the coming week, not weeks, week, and the effects it will have on the economy and our daily lives that no longer allow me to sleep. Is this sinking in now? I am forced to know things about what could happen in the coming week. 7 days makes a week. And the effects it will have on the economy and our daily lives that no longer allow me to sleep. So you let that sink in for a bit and then tell yourself that things are going peacefully and this is temporary and it'll be over soon. Next, this is also another interesting one here. Now, this is NATO member Spain, right? Then you should be already thinking of Revelation 17. But NATO member Spain closes airspace, so they weren't playing around, right? When they said that, about Trump, Trump threatened to embargo them and so on, closes airspace to U.S. planes involved in Iran operations. So the cracks are starting to, become more seared, more, visible. And of course, it's going to do that. It's biblical prophecy. These allies, which have already been treated and spoken against by Trump as being a paper tiger, being worthless, might as well be abandoned, and well, eventually, they're going to turn. So let's read a little bit here. It says, given worsening U.S.-Spain relations over Washington's pro-Israel policies, this is a big step, which is not entirely surprising. Spain has fully shuttered its airspace to U.S. planes involved in attacks on Iran. Interesting. They're letting you know, look, we're not down with this. We're not down with you on this. This is an action significantly beyond its prior controversial policy to deny U.S. use of jointly operated military bases, and what has also been a long-running ban on ships transferring arms and ammo to Israel. So they're taking a firm stance on this. And it's not going to be just them, but this does send a strong message. Spain's defense minister, Margarita Robles, if I'm saying that right, announced on Monday, we don't authorize either the use of military bases or the use of airspace for actions related to the war in Iran. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has also confirmed we have denied the United States the use of the Rota and Moron bases for this illegal war. All flight plans involving operations in Iran have been rejected. All of them, including those for refueling aircraft. Apparently, an exception will be made for emergency landings, but in essence, this means no U.S. flyovers by tanker aircraft or bombers will be approved. So don't be surprised, as this unfolds, when you start to see the U.S. start to be more isolated. Babylon starts to be abandoned by its allies. And it's going to go right in line with biblical prophecy. So, lastly, right, we have here Democrat shutdown. Right, let's play this right here. Now, Trump came out and basically said, look, I'm going to bypass, who I need to bypass and sign this executive order so that TSA agents can get paid, right? Well, now this is what they're saying here, that Democrats are preparing emergency litigation against Trump, asking Democrat judges to prevent him from, quote, illegally paying TSA agents. Let's hear this.
What did Democrats get out of this standoff?
Yeah, well, Margaret, the standoff is not done yet, right? The president is illegally paying, apparently, TSA agents. You had the Senate, as you pointed out with Mr. Homan, pass a bipartisan bill unanimously in the United States Senate to say, look, let's fund everybody else and let's deal with this thorny issue about ICE. And then you had the Republican House say, hell no, we're not doing that.
What did Democrats get?
So this is fueling more and more of a divide that will lead to civil war, because now, I mean, with the situation, you could say, that's going on, TSA is becoming like no more. Okay, it's been a very, very long time. By now, a lot of them probably already quit, left, don't even show up. Okay, forget even calling out. It's just done. And now they have ICE in there saying, hey, we'll stay here as long as it's needed. So this deadlock, of we're not going to fund it, we are going to fund it, we're not going to do it, eventually is just going to have a toll on people, on travel. So you have a lot of things that are going on, right, on geopolitically, internally on the soils of Babylon, and in different parts of the world, right? Different countries all throughout the world are experiencing this. Okay, this isn't a problem for just America or a problem for just, Iran. Now, this is 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 18, just going straight to the point. It says, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled. the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. You see that? So as things escalate and they get worse geopolitically, that also affects things, in your domestic lives. And things are going to escalate more and more. And what? Because of their pride, the arrogancy, the wickedness, the iniquity. Your cities are going to be troubled. Okay? Houses are going to be destroyed. You're going to have, don't be surprised, when they start throwing them drone attacks on U.S. soils, when they start setting up those false events, different states, different days. And eventually they start locking things down. They've already drafted lockdown measures based on this energy crisis, lockdown 2.0. So how much more, say there's one or a series of false Fs, false events, that martial law is going to be the least of your problems at that time. But anyway, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Kudash. And until next time, Shalom.